this like pretty cynically, but like even though there's this, even though because it's being maybe because it's being shown on TV, it's being presented in such like a public source or public place, it kind of gives this facade of like, I know it's like it's not entirely real, but people aren't really getting how manipulative it is. Do you think that's the case, or maybe are people just kind of seeing right through it? Because I mean, if they were seeing right through it, they probably wouldn't be watching it.
I think it definitely has entertainment value, even if you know that it's all being manufactured. But I also think that I don't know the level of manufacture. I don't know what's real and what's not. No one knows what's real and what's not. And I don't think people even... I don't want to say that people don't stop to think about it, but unless you want to be cynical of every single thing that is being said and every single action, which is no fun. It's no fun to watch. Be like, is that true? Because that takes all the fun out of it. But unless you're watching it like that, you're not stopping to think about how the scene was created and how the scene was set, and did they really say this, and did they really mean that? So I think that if someone stopped to really think about it, they could notice all those little details that create drama where there isn't any, or maybe tone down drama where there is some, so that the focus can be somewhere else. I think people would see that, but they don't want to, almost. I mean, I didn't. I spent a lot of it just completely absorbed. I was like, what are you gonna do? Because that's way more fun. That's way more entertaining. And
it's a pretty entertaining. Like, there's always action happening, so you're always focused like, what's the next thing? What are they going to do next? They're not focused like, oh, is that real?
Really, always action happening when they're just chilling on an island. I think sometimes people are just swimming. Just some water.
It's probably had so much of the
doing nothing. There was probably a lot of doing nothing, doing their makeup, like sitting around and like talking about TV shows. Like, nobody was contemplating having sex at all times.
Yeah, definitely. It's
that's
like
the point of the show, but
and it's just like the whole aspect of like the AI. Like, I don't know, because I know it's just a reality TV show, but it's just like I couldn't imagine the mind of someone who would want to be like for a month, like their entire, like all their rights are signed away, and like you just sign on the dotted line, and you're just like, okay, now this creepy AI person watches everything you ever do, and like will shame you, and it really kind of creates this like it's kind of like a mob mentality type, like, oh, you kiss, like it's like. And then you lose so much money. It's just like, it's just, ugh,
Yeah. And the AI isn't even the AI. It's literally someone watching through a camera and speaking through a microphone. You know what I mean? So
yeah, like they probably didn't like go to IBM and like develop an AI to watch like millennials have sex or whatever. Probably just like a bunch of cameras.
Or okay if that was the case, but I feel like knowing that someone was watching me at all times, like there's cameras everywhere. There's cameras following you around. There's cameras watching you sleep. I'd be so self-conscious to go to sleep. Like, what if I started drooling? But then again, I am not the type to be on a reality TV show, so I can't speak to anyone who would.
Yeah, I feel like there's like it's definitely a special type of breed. For sure to get into that, but
if you are confident in who you are, power to you. All the power.
Yeah. I totally. Yeah, that's definitely something that like you can pursue. Like that's a perfectly acceptable thing. But yeah, it's just like that kind of like commodification of it. Like, do you think I'm kind of being like pushing this too hard, or like, because I just feel like just like what kind of message is it sending? It's like a really kind of like perverse way to view like relationships.
Yeah.
Or am I going too crazy with that?
No, I definitely agree. I think it's a specific type of lens. It's a specific way to look at relationships, to think about relationships. I also think that there was they had 3 black guys, right? They had nobody who was brown. They had one black girl. They had
I think they had two.
a bunch
I
of
don't
white
know.
kids from, whatever.
Australia.
And so, they did some form of representation in race, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
There was no queer representation unless you consider that one girl who was like, I like girls who look exactly like me, big boobs and big hair.
Oh yeah, the
And
one girl who like they kissed in the beginning to like piss everybody off.
And only one of them was even not straight, and that's the only form of queer representation on the show at all. That was another thing that I had an issue with. Is the way that it was just like, these are straight relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they didn't even try to create like a conversation about what relationships look like. It was just try not to have sex so that you can talk to each other.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like a thing with reality TV show in general. Like they're lacking in that area generally.
Definitely lacking in a representation area. I mean, think about it. What have there been? 45 bachelors and bachelorettes?
Yeah.
They're all pretty much white bread boys. And, white bread girls. There's a couple of, people of color tossed in there for some representation. I mean, don't quote me because I don't actually know a lot about The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, but I do know that there's not really ever...
And not a lot of, like, lesbian relationships or gay relationships either.
No, well, there's never been a queer bachelor or bachelorette. There's been, I think, 3 contestants who are not 100% straight. Not 3. I don't actually know the numbers, but I know
Has there been like any kind of reality show like for specifically queer people?
I don't know. I really don't. Which means that it wasn't mainstream if there was one. Which, I think a lot of queer people would be like, fuck, you're putting me on camera? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And that's like opening yourself up to a level of hate that I don't think a lot of queer people would want, because the Twitter trolls are nasty.
Yeah.
And I think the Twitter trolls were nasty for Too Hot to Handle. Like, for this show, there were a lot of people who were like, this is inappropriate, this isn't okay, this isn't good, we don't condone this, like, why is this on TV? And first of all, let me just say, if you think it's inappropriate, don't watch it.
And I think a lot of people
it's not kid appropriate, don't watch it. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, a lot of people are kind of like taking it out on like the contestants, but I think it's more of like kind of my instinct was to be like, what is this like creepy cuckoo idea of just like of like people always? It's a very I think like a very dystopian like George Orwell 1984 type scenario.
That's funny.
It's like, what is this? It's kind of like, it's a really kind of a crazy premise of like trying to not have sex. With that, like, that kind of drew me in the first place because I was like looking at Netflix and I was like, this kind of popped up. And then as I started watching, it was just like, this is like really it's almost like a kind of a 1950s, 60s style that was like, keep your legs crossed, like that kind of that kind of thing. Because it's like, I get like the progression, like it's good to have a progression of like we talk, like that kind of thing. That's good, but I don't know, like
it seemed like it was taking a step backwards.
Yeah, it felt more like it could have been if reality TV was like a thing in the 1950s. This would fit perfectly,
Yeah, except they'd be wearing a lot more clothing, and
the
punishment for having
one-piece
sex
bathing suits.
It wouldn't be. Well, that's not even until like the 70s and 80s. In the 50s, it would be the punishment for having sex would just be that no one would ever speak to you ever again, and you're like shunned.
Yeah.
So, but I get what you're saying. It kind of feels like a step back in like a progressive way, because it's like, keep your legs closed, don't have sex.
Yeah, that kind of feels like it's going against like the sexual education trends of late, where people will be like, the abstinence only education that people are pushing and stuff like that. Like that seems like it's like we've seen a lot of like trends of people bringing that up, and kind of like obviously we are kind of in the age where sex ed is like what we're going on, and wait, I'm looking up queer TV shows here, but like that kind of seems like the trend we're going on. Like the most people being like it's okay, it's like okay. Like there's sometimes like you want to have sex in a relationship, like that makes sense. But and then the biggest thing where it comes to is like more and more people are talking about educating and like consent and like how you move forward in a way that's respectful for both sides. Like that is the kind of the new frontier. I think that a lot of people are kind of digging into more and more. Not like don't have sex, and if you do, it's bad. But at least they're like, I feel like if this was in the 1950s, they would take money only away from the women and not the men as well. It's like you're tempting them or something like that. Like that would be the narrative there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. And at the same time, The Bachelor and The Bachelorette is fucking weird. Here's one guy dating 30 women at a time, right?
Yeah, that's kind of like
find a wife based on those 30 women that he met all at once, or vice versa. This woman's trying to pick a guy based on the 30 guys that she met all at once, and she goes out on a group date where it's her and 6 guys, and then she starts eliminating them based on how they interact with her and all of these other guys that are all trying to date her or him, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The Bachelorette is weird. It's weird.
Yeah, it's really not normal. It's like
weird.
The Muslim or like the polyamorous Muslim tradition of like having 2 wives or 3 wives, like taken to a whole new level. But I think the only really one that I've seen that's coming up is Are You the One is the show about that, but. For queer dating shows. It's a bunch of young singles thrown together in a house, and they use old school matchmaking techniques and complex algorithms to find quote unquote true loves. Like again, I feel like I don't know. I hope, but I hope no one's like getting a bad message from this. But like, because it's kind of hard to really come up with the full evidence. There's no like studies on, from what I know, is like how reality TV shows like affect people's view of themselves, of like what's okay in life, like how you work with others, and how you like find love and all that stuff. So hopefully that's not being a big problem that we have like no idea about. But I think it's like this I think sends definitely a concerning message.
Yeah, I agree. I think that reality TV is staged, it's fake, it's all of these things, and it's fun, so people really like it. And I'm not saying that I've never watched an episode of The Bachelorette just because I am completely confused by who would decide to find love like that.
Yeah, it's entertaining.
I've been taken in by the this, that, and the other thing, and oh my god, did she really pick him? Why would she pick him? That kind of thing. I've absolutely been completely invested in these characters. And I say characters intentionally because, again,
they are. Yeah, I think it's a great way of putting it. Like the characters and the roles that people play.
The personas, their personas. It's not even really them, and the whole I don't know. I think that it's wild.
Yeah.
And I've watched it. I've gotten engaged with it. I've gotten interested and invested. But I think all the while in the back of my head remembering this isn't real and this isn't what real life looks like. And I think as long as you or anyone remembers that, then it's more harmless than harmful.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like it's like a sporting match, like an event or competition.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like a lot. Very much. I think you kind of got to turn to like narrative TV for or writing normal TV for these kind of personal love stories almost.
Yeah.
Which is
it's funny that they're more real on a character
on a fictional story. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that is kind of the crazy thing. So if there's anything else, like we are